Hello, this is Ruslan Belov with you. So what can I say? Trump met with Zelensky, then posted an angry message about how Putin might be deceiving him, and that it might be time to tighten measures, relations, and so on. But our foreign ministry, in turn, in connection with the liberation of the Kursk region, also issued a statement. They said that all other regions, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, will also be completely liberated. That is, it seems there won't be any agreement on the LBS, likely referring to a ceasefire or peace deal. Therefore, the war continues, combat operations continue, and we continue to analyze the situation on the front. Let's open the map. Well, friends, today we won't just be talking about the Kursk region. There are also a number of very important advances on the front. But first and foremost, of course, I congratulate the residents of the Kursk region on this significant event, namely the complete liberation of Kursk land from the invading Ukrainian armed forces. Yesterday, Gerasimov announced this to Putin. And by the way, what's interesting is that comments immediately started popping up, saying that the chief of the general staff, Gerasimov, is lying, exaggerating, that nothing has been liberated, and so on. But you know, American cartographers would disagree with you. They also quickly repainted their map in the appropriate colors. Yes, as you can see, in some places they still mark gray zones. But again, looking at the map, there's no Ukrainian armed forces, UAF, control anywhere here. So Gerasimov told it like it is. The Kursk region has been completely liberated from the UAF. They've retreated to the Sumy region. Meanwhile, operations continue for the final clearing of the liberated territory. There's even footage of a flag being raised in Gornal. Again, just a couple of days ago, I showed you the situation here. I mean, in the area of the village of Gornal. The UAF suffered heavy losses here, and it was clear that with such losses, they wouldn't be able to hold their positions in the village for long. Well, that's exactly what happened. They were pushed out of the last village in the Kursk region. Now the question is, what's next? You know, Gerasimov also said that operations will continue to expand the zone of control in the Sumy region, specifically to secure Kursk and ensure that our territories are never occupied again. As for Sumy, according to yesterday's updated data, we already control 90 square kilometers. And this number is growing every day. Additionally, apart from clearing the Kursk region, yesterday there was footage from Popovka in the Belgorod region, where our defenders fearlessly walked through the village with a flag. They marched openly, unafraid. This leads us to conclude that the UAF is not only absent from Popovka, but also from the surrounding areas, right up to the border. This entire territory has also been liberated and is under our control. As for Demidovka, well, there are no UAF in the village itself, but in the forest belts, some enemy presence remains. So in the Belgorod region, they still control a couple of square kilometers. But you understand that this number is so insignificant that, well, I don't know, maybe it's not even worth paying much attention to. They'll be pushed out from there anyway. Now let's move on to no less important advances on the main sectors of the front. Before we get to the main sectors, one more thing about Sumy that I forgot to mention, Loknya. Here, yesterday we advanced another kilometer inside the village itself and reached the center. See, we've reached the center again. Accordingly, all previously lost positions have been regained by the Russian armed forces, and very quickly, in just 2 days. Now, only 2 kilometers separate the Russian armed forces from the outskirts of Yunukovka. And given the complete liberation of the Kursk region, we can expect additional forces to be deployed here, meaning the pace of operations will soon increase as well. Now let's move to the main sectors of the front. In the Chasiv Yar direction, Russian troops are advancing on UAF positions, both on the northern and southern flanks, as well as within the city itself, which is located on elevated terrain. Russian servicemen are advancing along the railway line north of the city and from the highway on the south. Control of Chasiv Yar will allow Russian units to push toward Kostiantynivka, located less than 10 kilometers to the west, which is one of the UAF's largest logistical hubs. Today we have updates from the southern part of Chasiv Yar. Here, Russian fighters have advanced several hundred meters, encircling the city from the south. The pincer movement is gradually taking shape, and I believe the battle for Chasiv Yar will be over in no more than a month. After the battle for Chasiv Yar and consolidation in this area, operations in this direction will become much more active. Here, I'll start with Toretsk, or rather the Kostiantynivka direction. Yesterday, a well-known UAF propagandist with the call sign Officer was crying in his Telegram channel about how holding their positions here is becoming harder and harder, and soon they'll have to retreat to Kostiantynivka. And why is that? Well, first of all, because their flanks are starting to crumble and the UAF simply can't hold them. And even the deployment of reserves. They did bring in reinforcements, but it didn't help them much here. Secondly, because our forces have also begun advancing along the railway line and have practically pushed the UAF out of Dilievka. Next, the push will follow this very road toward the settlement of Oleksandropil, Oleksandr Shultin. And that's it. At that point, you could say the Russian armed forces will already be on the outskirts of Kostiantynivka. And honestly, if there's no ceasefire agreement in the near future, which is unlikely given all the statements from Ukraine about their unwillingness to compromise, then this summer, one of the hottest sectors of the front will be the battle for this city. It will become the largest city fought over since Mariupol, given its pre-war population of over 100,000. And since the city is situated in lowland, making it extremely difficult to defend, there's a real chance the task could be completed by summer. Moving on, advances were recorded yesterday in the area between Uspennivka and Nadezhdinka. The total advance here was about 2 square kilometers. Another key development was the push into the eastern outskirts of Novoalexandrovka. Efforts are now underway to consolidate these positions. This is significant because this is an extremely challenging sector of the front. Just remember how long the fighting for Uspennivka lasted. A seemingly small village that changed hands nearly a dozen times, with battles raging for several months. The fact that the focus has now shifted to Novoalexandrovka means the fighting for Uspennivka is finally over. That's one point. The second is that further advances here will eventually allow us to tighten the noose around Kotlyarivka and push into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, as the eastern flank will be secured. But the most impressive advance yesterday happened near Bohdanivka. Just look. Even on the map, it's clear we're not talking about 1 or 2 square kilometers. No, here we managed to advance 4.5 kilometers deep and over 3 kilometers wide in a single push. The total area brought under our control is about 10.5 square kilometers. When I saw this, I thought, if we could do this every day on every sector of the front, we'd achieve all objectives, reaching the administrative borders of all 4 regions within a year. As for Bohdanivka itself, it's pure hell for the UAF, their own words. The Russian military is leveling the village with airstrikes and artillery. In short, the battle here is nearing its end. And by end, I mean the UAF's defeat will mark the finale for this sector. Once Bohdanivka falls, they'll have nothing left to hold on to and will be forced to retreat 11 kilometers immediately. That's why they're clinging so desperately to it, despite the infernal conditions and threat of encirclement. But let's be real. No matter how hard they cling, the outcome is already decided. Either they flee, surrender, or become fertilizer. There are no other options. As for other sectors, there's not much to report. No major advances were recorded. So that's all for today's Frontline update. Now, a few words on the political side. Political developments. Trump in Rome warned Zelensky that the US is prepared to abandon the peace track in 10 days if no temporary ceasefire is reached. Zelensky claims he's ready for negotiations with Russia, but he's almost certainly lying. Something tells us this is a media trap by the globalists to keep Trump entangled in the Ukraine case, writes the Legitiminawai Telegram channel. The meeting was brief. Trump listened to Zelensky at Macron and Starmer's request. The photo is historic because it's the globalists' last chance to sabotage Trump's plans. Our sources say Zelensky doesn't want to end the war yet because he hasn't finished purging his political rivals inside Ukraine. For example, he's racing to remove disloyal mayors still in power, ban them from future elections, and jail their associates. He failed to install loyalists in military administrations. Instead, he appointed corrupt cronies tasked with skimming 50% off local schemes rather than building a positive image for his party. Now, with the war nearing its end, he realizes his fabricated polls won't secure him an election victory. If he loses, he'll be torn apart, his manufactured hero cult dismantled, and he'll go down in history as a loser. So he clings to prolonging the conflict at any cost, ready to sacrifice everything for self-preservation. Our prediction: the internal infighting we've long reported on will intensify until the Zelensky clan collapses. He's on borrowed time. Ironically, the split is widening due to declining USAID funding. Many are now left without their usual bread. Will Trump admit defeat? The peace track on Ukraine has hit a dead end, reports Yuri Podolyaka. Kiev's stubbornness leaves little hope for productive talks. Yesterday, the Kiev regime officially laid out its demands in response to Trump's proposals. No recognition of territorial losses. No limits on its military or friendly, i.e. NATO, forces on its soil. US security guarantees, equivalent to NATO's Article 5. Zelensky even demanded at least what Israel gets: full control over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. No full sanctions lift on Russia, only piecemeal relief for concessions. Ukraine's reconstruction paid for by Russia and frozen assets, as if Russia were the one losing the war. To drive the point home, 2 days ago, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, deputy head of the Russian General Staff's main operational directorate, was assassinated in Balashikha near Moscow. A clear message: no peace deal will happen without a crushing military defeat first. Zelensky repeats that he'll only negotiate from a position of strength, dictating terms to Moscow. But as Trump said, he has no cards left to play. Kiev and London will keep proposing terms Russia can't accept while pretending to engage in diplomacy. The question now: will the US president admit defeat, or will he keep pretending a Ukraine agreement is imminent? Russian analysts are watching closely. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you liked this update, subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned.